us tonight as we talk about how to build an accountable club. This is part of our Dedicated to Members program, and I will explain some of that more at the end of this session. But first, we're going to focus on how to build an accountable club. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and put your club name and your city and state that you are from in the chat, just so we can see where people are from. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Denise Carpenter, and I am the immediate past district director for District 43. I've been in Toastmasters for 9 years, and I have passion oozing from me about Toastmasters. And those of you who know me know that. And that's why we started this Dedicated to Members program, because we want to help all of our members, no matter where they are, no matter what club they're in, we want to help them get to the next level where they want to be. And that's what this session is about, is to help you with your clubs to get to the next level. We will be having some opportunities for you to speak up and speak out. Please feel free to add things to the chat as we're going through. Alex Hawkins and Holly Thompson are my Zoom masters tonight. They will also be the chat masters. They will help me monitor the chats, and we will answer your questions as we go, but I also will be asking for some input from you as we go through this session. First, let's start about, what does accountability mean? What is your definition of accountability? You can unmute yourself and say something out loud, or add that to the chat. What does accountability mean to you?
Fulfilling your role to your best ability.
Okay. Okay, great. Anybody else?
Being willing to report out to somebody else, feeling like you're taking ownership and responsibility of outcomes.
Okay, great, great. Those are some great answers. For tonight, we're going to talk about setting clear goals. That is one thing that you need to do to have an accountable club, and also having expectations. It's not just about setting the goals, but you've got to be able to follow through on those goals. So that's what an accountable club is all about, is making sure that everybody knows what they need to do and then following through on those goals that they had been set. How about, why do you think that we should build an accountable club?
So the members get what they came for.
Okay, yep, exactly.
To ensure we're providing value.
Providing value. Thank you, Michelle.
Sustainability.
Sustainability. Sustainability in Toastmasters is key. If we don't build something that's sustainable, then your club could easily fold next month. Okay. Any other reasons why we should build a club with accountability?
Toastmasters promise, it goes back to providing value for money.
Okay, absolutely. Toastmasters promise. So just a few things that I had jotted down, you've already said. We want to ensure that the members are reaching their goals. We want to retain our members, which is a big thing of what we're going to talk about tonight, is retaining members. We also want to make sure that our members are moving through pathways and they're actually completing their goals. In my mind, a lot of times when we talk about retaining members, we look at, did they pay their dues again? That would be considered a member that we've retained. However, I believe we should also look at, did they pay their dues again, and did they complete something in pathways? Because if they didn't, are they just a paper member? And we all know that paper members do not benefit us. So if we want to look at true retaining of members, I think they should meet those two criteria. They paid their dues for a second term, and they completed something in pathways. And then if we do all those things right, then new members will join. because they're going to see the excitement of the members who are staying in Toastmasters, and they're going to want to join, and they're going to want to stay. As leaders, one of the things that we should think about is what's in it for them. It's so easy to get focused on what we want out of Toastmasters that we forget to think about what they want out of Toastmasters. We need to be thinking about what they want. I'll get into some more details on this, but over the last few months, we have been building up a program, which we will get into those details later. And as we're building up these programs, I have talked to several potential new members, and most of them became members. And when I talked to them about an accountable club versus a flexible club, 19 out of 20 of them chose the accountable club. The Toastmasters format is built on flexibility, which I think it works to a degree because you got people who can join at any time. So you have to have some flexibility there. But in reality, I think our members really want us to hold them accountable. They want to raise their hand, they want to pay their money, then they want us to guide them through what to do. Not just say, here's how you start in Pathways, here, let me schedule you for your first speech. They want us to hold their hand a little bit more. And so that's what we've built here is a program that will help you hold their hand a little bit more throughout the process. Why do you think that most people want to be held accountable instead of having that flexibility?
It could keep them engaged.
Okay, yep, keeping them engaged.
It eliminates confusion as to how to do things.
Yep, eliminates confusion. It's also very easy. How many of you do not live a busy life? Okay, as I expected, no one's hands went up. We're all busy. And so it's super easy to find an excuse of why I can't give a speech this week or why I can't even go to a meeting this week. Where if you are being held accountable, those excuses become less of a priority and your speeches and your membership becomes a higher priority. So again, that's what we're trying to get to. Again, we're thinking about what does the member actually want? Well, and one thing that I want to say, let me back up one thing. I do have a little disclaimer for this session. If you came to this session thinking that we were going to talk about how to have a membership drive, that's not what this is about. We are going to talk to you about ways to get members, but the biggest thing is we want to talk about how to retain your members. If we can retain your members, then you don't even have to worry about looking for new members because they'll just flock in because of word of mouth. This is also not a last chance effort to get DCP points. Again, we are talking about how to retain your members for the long run. It goes back to what Mary said about sustainability. We're trying to build sustainability through these programs, not, hey, it's almost June, we got 30 days to get this done. No, this is about how will we build the strongest clubs for the long term, not just for the next 6 weeks.
Denise,
Yes,
Toastmaster
Mary.
Carpenter, another reason why we should build clubs with strong accountability, I think it was, is that so that we can help build other clubs to be strong as well. Because I've been encouraging the people in my club to go out and help other clubs to be like, to be as strong as we are. Capital City, we consider ourselves a very strong club. And we're asking our members, go out and share what we're learning here with another club.
Absolutely.
That's trying to make it.
It's not just about the clubs. I keep saying building a strong club, but we're really building strong members within those clubs. And then those members can go out and build more clubs or they can join other clubs and help make them strong. So that's a great point. We are talking about strong membership, not just clubs. Okay, when we talk about accountability, so far I've been talking about how to hold our members accountable. But who do you think needs to be the most accountable for this program?
The club officers.
Absolutely, Charlene. The club officers. It needs to be the ones that are leading the club. And it may not even be a club officer. It might be just someone who stands up for leadership in that club, right? But your club officers should be definitely a part of that leadership team. So you need to be the most accountable. How do you need to be accountable? You need to be organized. You need to make sure that you follow through, and you need to make sure you communicate often. I don't know if you guys know this, but we're a communication group. Since we're a communication group, we should make sure we communicate often. And I know if you guys are anything like what I've seen, we don't always do the greatest job of that. So make sure that you communicate often. Remember, a lot of the times these are new members. They need more communication than your experienced members. I'm also going to put a couple people on the spot here. We've got Holly and Alex here, and they have helped me with this accountable program. Last December, well, it was probably about October. Last October, we got the idea to do this. And I said, hey, I can come up with ideas all day long, but I need people to help me execute these. And Holly and Alex and Barbara have been by my side the whole time. They have helped me brainstorm it. They've helped us come up with the right plan. And they've also gained benefits. So it's not just the members who are going to gain benefits, but it's a new set of skills that the leaders are going to gain. So Alex and Holly, would you mind just saying a few words on what you have gained through this program?
Absolutely, Denise. So for me, I served as a club officer in many capacities. You know, I've done the big ones, even then sergeant at arms and secretary. So I feel like I had checked the box as far as traditional Toastmasters leadership goes. But this is a new challenge because, like Denise mentioned, there was a lot more accountability on me. And, you know, there's a lot of accountability when you're talking about a Toastmasters officer and the requirements over the year. But we're talking week over week, putting together the agendas, being accountable to the members in a really measurable way, and showing up for the members in every single meeting. And one big thing that I got out of being a facilitator for one of these programs is the ability to put together instructional content and information to present week over week, where I felt like I was more of a facilitator and almost like I was putting on a speechcraft, in addition to serving as a member, you know, being accountable to the member and serving them in an officer capacity. But I really improved my presentation skills, and serving in that facilitator role was I had a lot of great learnings over the past several months. How about you, Holly?
Thanks, Alex. I was able to be the club coach for this particular accountable club. Similar to Alex, I had other officer roles within my typical club, Toastmaster club. But with this club, it was different. I got to help mold them. I got to see them from the very beginning, where everyone actually started the same day. And it was really neat to see the progression of everyone, and they were all moving together. And it was beneficial and exciting all at the same time. Things that I also noticed was whenever we had a week to learn materials where we were teaching our members how to get rid of filler words and how to keep the time, how to know your audience. During these moments, if I was preparing the materials, I was digging into resources that Toastmasters offers that I was not aware of, or learning the materials in a different format, thinking of it differently. And sometimes Denise, Alex, or our other facilitator, Barbara, presented, and hearing their perspective, they had other things to say that I never thought about either. And so with this, I just loved where we were all coming together and being one club, helping each other, from even the facilitators helping the members, but also there was many times where the members were helping facilitators in learning and being worked together. Denise?
Okay, thank you, Alex and Holly. One of the other things that we got to practice was how to talk to leadership within Walmart doing this. I'll talk more about that when we talk about road shows. but we all got the opportunity to speak with leadership in different capacities in different ways. And we also worked on narrowing down our presentation to where we can modify it for leadership, right? They don't want the details. They want simple. And so that was another skill that we had to work on in order to have the right presentation for them. And again, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. For this presentation, we're going to talk about 3 different things primarily. 1 member at a time, 1 meeting at a time, and 1 club at a time. So there's different ways that you can be accountable. The 1 club at a time takes the most work. So if your club isn't ready for that, let's start with 1 member at a time. If you're ready to go maybe in the middle, we'll do 1 meeting at a time. So let me show you some ideas that we've done ourselves or we've seen other people, other clubs do for this. So for the 1 member at a time, as a member joins the club, you hand them a schedule. You have it all mapped out, and I'll send you some examples of what you can use. Modify this to fit your needs as much as you need to, but this is just an example. So for example, on the schedule, it will say, this is the day they signed up, this is the day they started Pathways, this is the path that they're taking, and then you plug that date in, and when you plug that date in, it fills in all the other dates. So you're saying every week, I want you to fill a role. We're going to start easy. We're going to start off with a table topic speaker. That's easy. They can do that, right? The next week, we're going to say, okay, let's do it. Let's just jump in and give your icebreaker. Then they're going to follow up with an all counter and then another table topic speaker. So again, you're starting them off easy. You're easing them in, but you're also kind of throwing them in a little bit too. And then your VP of E tracks this with them. We know that things are going to happen and they're not going to be able to follow this exactly all the way through their path. That's okay. You plug in the dates and it automatically updates for the next ones. If they want to be a different role, you can fix that too. There's easy drop downs in there where you can fix that. But this gives them a little bit more accountability, right? It's not just saying, oh, sign up whenever you want, right? It's, nope, this is what you're going to do. And when you have a program like this, it doesn't matter when they start. If they start today, you hand them this schedule. If someone else starts next week, you give them a schedule. They'll be a week behind that person, right? If you have 3 people start at the same time, great. Give them all the same schedule. They can all give their icebreakers at the same time. They can move through level 1 at the same time. The VPE needs to be a little prepared for this, but if they're accountable, then they will make this successful. Do we have any questions on the 1 member at a time approach?
I have a question.
Okay, Joyce?
Suppose you have 10 members that join at once.
Okay, we'll get to that. Hold that question. We'll answer that question here in a little bit.
Okay.
You thought you were going to stump me, didn't you, Joyce? No, I'm prepared. We'll talk about that.
I put in the chat where to find this form.
Okay, I will send it to you when we're all done. I'll send you an email with an Excel version of this. And
Thank you.
And then you guys can use as you want. You can also Google. I've seen some other ones that are PDF versions that are set up for each path, but I like to keep it simple. I just have 1 version, and then you can modify it as you need to for your path or your members. And it's in Excel, so you can use it formulas. Can't do that in PDFs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Denise,
Yes,
thinking
Holly.
of this, and maybe you have 2 people start today, and 3 weeks from now you have 4 more people start, etc., where you may have on a speech week, or excuse me, a meeting, you may need 4 speaker roles, 5 speaker roles, etc. How would you manage that aspect with this format of 1 member at a time?
Okay, and we'll talk about that too. It's a little bit related to Joyce's question, but we will talk about that. But that's a great question. If you're doing this with all your members as they start, as the VPE, in a perfect world, you got people just coming in, right? They want to join your club all the time, and before you know it, your agendas are full, right? That's our goal. Well, the VPE might need to get a little creative. And so it might mean that you need to start someone off a week later than what you did because next week's already full. You know, be flexible. There has to be some flexibility in this program, but also mostly accountability. But we will answer that question here in a few minutes. Okay, and if anybody has any questions down the road, we can come back to them. So now let's talk about one meeting at a time. And for those of you in the Little Rock area, you've probably seen something similar to this. Dewey McGar does a great job of doing a rotational schedule. He has a schedule and he basically assigns his members each week. And that works great. So this is an example of what you can do with the rotational schedule. As you can see here, I've got all of the roles listed out. And then I've got the members. I'm not real creative, so I've got member 1 through 12 in here. And then they just rotate through each week. So you can see that they're rotating through. And again, people are going to change. They're not going to show up. So you can be flexible. You can say, well, since you didn't miss, you just missed that slot. Now we're going to bump you down one. Or you can back up. It just all depends on your flexibility and your availability. And at the end of each meeting, you share this with the members so that they can see what their roles are for next week. I've actually done this program too, and people enjoy it. When you tell them, hey, you're going to fill this role next week, they're like, okay, yep, I can be a speaker. Okay, I'll fill the grammarian role. And they'll usually jump right on board with it. And again, this will be in the Excel spreadsheet that I send out. There's an example of it. But it's just a way for you to hold people accountable and assign them to roles. I like to color code things, so I have some conditional formats set up in there, but just go through it and set it up the way you want to. You know, add some more roles if you need to, take some away, whatever works for you. And if you have plenty of people in your club and not enough roles, add some more. Add the listening role, or add a word of the day role, or whatever you guys have, a jokester of the day. You know, you can always add more to this if you have more people than you have roles to keep everybody engaged as they go. Any questions on the rotating schedule?
Denise, what's the expectation with the members when they, so I'm thinking in our club, you know, they just don't show up. Not that they don't show up, but like if this is already scheduled a week ahead, well, you got here 4 weeks ahead of time, what's the expectation of the member to say whether or not they're going to come?
So I think you set those guidelines ahead of time, and you say, you know, if you give me enough notice, I will adjust the schedule so that you can maintain that role the following week. But if you don't give me enough notice, then you skip that role. You know, so it depends on the flexibility of your club and what you want to do. When I was a coach of a club, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago, I was getting so frustrated because people weren't coming to meetings, or they were coming but nobody was signing up for roles, and it was really getting frustrated. So one day I just sat down and I put together the agenda myself, and I sent it out to them, and I said, here, this is the agenda. You're going to be a speaker next week. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And I thought, okay, either people are going to not show up anymore because they don't want me taking that much control, or they're going to show up and do it. And I was actually surprised that people started showing up, and they were like, okay, what role am I filling today? And I've been a part of another club that's kind of the same way, but we usually don't find out what our roles are until the day of the meeting. I would tweak that a little bit, make sure that they know ahead of time, because there's been several times where, oh, you're a speaker today. Oh, okay, what do I have in my back pocket? Let me see what I can do. But if you promote it every day, and you can also put this in Free Toast Host. If you use Free Toast Host for your clubs, go ahead and put it out there so they can see it. And that way they know what they're doing. I find that emailing them is probably the best approach, and it depends on the club too. I'm part of mostly corporate clubs, so we live by email. It just depends on what your communication tool is for that club.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions for the one meeting at a time approach?
I'm curious to see what you're going to show us for brand new clubs.
Okay, brand new clubs are the easy ones for the next program, we're going to talk about. So and the other thing that I don't really have on the slide, but I'm going to mention anyway, is celebration. No matter which approach you take, make sure that you celebrate success, right? Recognize your members as they move through it. For corporate clubs, if that means you send emails to their managers, great. That's a great way to recognize and celebrate your members. Just make sure that you are celebrating as you go through it. If you have someone who has perfect attendance, celebrate that. If you have someone who finishes level 1, celebrate that. It doesn't matter what you celebrate, just make sure you celebrate. Hi, Jillian. I see you have your hand up.
Hi, Denise. I just want to ask that, do you feel like having a more weeks visibility is better than just having 1 week, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I do. Now, it may not fit for everyone, but I do. When I'm being accountable to myself, I go out to Free Toast Host and I usually try to sign up for as many weeks that are available. Because if I do that, then I know, okay, this is what I'm doing that week. And it's setting an example for others, right? Now, in this approach, since you're already setting those up, I do believe that you should show more than 1 week, because if you're a speaker, some people need more than a week to prepare. And this way, if they are 2-3 weeks down the road, that will just give them that comfort of knowing, okay, I got 2 weeks to prepare. I've got 3 weeks to prepare. So it just gives them that time to be ready for their speeches. Or maybe they're the Toastmaster and they've never been a Toastmaster before. And when they see that they're going to be the Toastmaster in 3 weeks, they know what they need to do. That they're going to monitor the other Toastmasters the 2 weeks before so that they're ready.
Okay, perfect. Do you have a template for this one too?
Yes. Yep. When I send you the template, it'll have 3 different versions in it. It'll have the 1 meeting at a time, 1 member at a time, and 1 club at a time.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Now we're going to talk about 1 club at a time. If you saw the email that I sent out, I talked about how we took 2 clubs with 4 members back in October. I think it was November. Now I forgot my dates. And now combined, they have 47 members. We have no paper members in those clubs, because what we did was we came up with this plan and we executed it, and it took a team. So you want to make sure that you are prepared with a team, and it's going to take planning. No matter which one of these approaches you take, it's going to take some planning ahead of time. One of the things that I'll talk about is roadshow versus house open houses. The first thing you got to do is make sure your house is clean, right? So make sure you're prepared for whichever approach that you take. And I was about to fill out the paperwork to close at least one of those clubs. Last November, I was about to close at least one of them, possibly both of them, but we put this approach into place, and now they are thriving clubs. And we have a plan to keep this very sustainable, which I'll talk about. What makes 1 club at a time unique with this approach? 1, I call it facilitator-led. It's Toastmaster-led, right? They're still Toastmasters. We still act as Toastmasters, but there's a little more planning from a facilitator type mindset. And Mary, being a professional facilitator, you'll recognize that this is really about teaching a class of people. So it's not just 1 member at a time, it's a club at a time approach that you're thinking about. Another thing that's unique is that all of our members move through pathways together. Everyone started with their icebreaker the same week. Everybody finished level 1 the same week. You can do the same thing with the whole path if you want. But right now what we've done is they went through level 1 together. Level 2, we've given them a little more flexibility, so they're not as tied to a rigid schedule like we were before, but they're still being held accountable to finish their level 2, level 3, etc. And to answer both Holly and Joyce's questions, what do you do when you have several people who have to give speeches on the same week? Well, now that we're using Zoom, now this can change in the future, we use breakout rooms. It means that we have to have an agenda that accounts for different breakout rooms. I think the most we've had speak the same week is 14. 14 speakers in 1 week. Can't do that in an hour, right? And all of our meetings are 1 hour long. We do not go beyond the hour. The very first time we had a 3-hour meeting just to get it set up, but after that, it's always been 1 hour. So we use breakout rooms. We have up to 4 breakout rooms where we have 3 speakers in each breakout room. And each breakout room is held like another meeting. We have a Toastmaster in the room. We have an all counter in the room. We have a timer in the room. Each speaker has an evaluator in the room. The one thing we do a little bit different with those is our agenda is flipped around. We start off with our prepared speakers, and then we go right into evaluations, and then we go into table topics after. Because each room is just a little bit different, and one room might have a little more time than another, or we want to make sure we get through the evaluations first. But then we go into table topics when we have time. And then when we're done, we all come back to the same room, and we talk about what's going to happen the following week. We set them up for what's going to happen the next week and any other new information that we've done. One of the things that we've also done is you have to bring in guest evaluators because brand new members aren't going to be comfortable with being evaluators for each other yet, right? So we have to ask other Toastmasters to come and be guest evaluators. And we have had no problems filling our agenda with guest evaluators for those sessions. And again, they go to the separate breakout rooms. And then what we do, because it is an accountable club, if they miss their speech week where they're supposed to give a speech and we don't have enough room on the next agenda, or we've moved on to the next speech, they have to go to another Toastmasters meeting to give that speech. So this way we don't have to mess up our agenda. They have to be accountable and go to another one. That's the beauty of Toastmasters. No matter where you go, there's another meeting happening, right? So we help them find another club. We don't just say, go find another club. You're on your own. We help them find another club. We talk with those club officers to get them on the agenda, and then we make sure that they have that. Now, an advantage we do have that I should tell you for those of you who don't know is I work for Walmart in the home office. Alex and Holly, we all work for Walmart. At Walmart in the home office, we have 5 clubs in our Bentonville area. It makes it a little bit easier for us to find clubs for them to speak at. But I've also sent some members to Class Act, which is in Little Rock. We're on Zoom. Toastmasters is at our fingertips. So don't just limit yourself to what you can do within your own club or your own area or division even. Reach out beyond and see where you can send people to give speeches. The other thing that's unique that I didn't put on this slide is what we did was we followed a Speechcraft format. We merged a Speechcraft with Pathways. It's kind of like the new Speechcraft is, the electronic version, but we were cool before the new Speechcraft came out. We created it before the new one came out. So we started off because they're new members, so we need to educate them as they're going through it. So we gave an educational session, so we call those educational weeks. And then the next 2 weeks would be dedicated to speeches, and those were called speech weeks. And we would divide up the members into 2 different weeks, and they would give their speeches. Then we would go back into educational weeks. This way it gave our members a 3-week rotation. They weren't giving speeches too fast, and there wasn't way too much time in between. I know when I first started in Toastmasters, 3 weeks was the right cadence for me. 2 weeks felt too fast, like I couldn't incorporate the feedback I'd gotten. 4 weeks felt like I was starting all over. So I felt like 3 weeks was right for me, and I think a lot of people feel that way, so that's why we have the cadence of every 3 weeks they give a speech. Let me show you what an example looks like. So over here you'll see that we have an example of our agenda. We started off with what is Toastmasters? We talked to them about what Toastmasters is, what the meeting rules are, how the format looks, all that kind of stuff. We also talked about how to prepare a speech. What does a body look like? What does an opening look like? What does a conclusion look like? We also talked about evaluations because that's one of the foundations of Toastmasters, right? So we talked about that. So we set up little educational sessions so we could talk about what they're going to get from Toastmasters. And then we started speech weeks. And you'll see we had 2 weeks where they gave speeches, and then we had another educational week, and then we went back into speech week again. Now, what are some of the steps that you need to take to get this started? Like I said, you need to be prepared. You can't just go in there tomorrow and say, okay, people, this is what we're going to do. We got a brand new club we're starting, or this is what we're going to do. What we did was we sat down, we made a plan. We made this agenda for a full 6 months. And what we try to do is we try to get everybody signed up at the beginning of the enrollment period so that they go for a whole 6 months. They're getting the whole money's worth. I recommend that you start off with at least 2 facilitators. And depending on how big you want to go, you might go with a few more. We started off with 4 to get started, and that was great. But I think you could do it with 2 if you needed to. You got to create a plan. What works for you? If you're a corporate club, this program works great in corporate clubs, but build the plan so that it fits your corporation. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's got to fit your corporation and what your leaders in your corporation are looking for. Set the first meeting date that you're going to start this. If you don't set it, it's too easy to just keep planning and planning and planning and planning. You got to set the date and strive for it and commit to it. And then you want to go on a roadshow. I talked about this a little bit ago, the difference between a roadshow and an open house. An open house is when you send out invitations and you ask people to come to you so that you can tell them all about Toastmasters. A roadshow is instead of them coming to you, you go to them. You set up time with them and you talk about Toastmasters with them. So again, it's what's in it for them. If you have an open house and you invite 100 people and they see 100 people on that list, they're like, 99 people will go. I don't need to go. But if you set up a roadshow and it's designed strictly for them or a handful of other people, then they're going to be missed if they don't go to your roadshow. And sometimes people will send someone in their place. If they can't go, they'll send someone else in their place. The other thing is when you talk about open houses, I mentioned that you've got to make sure that your house is clean before you have an open house. And I give this example a lot, so some of you may have heard this. I was at an open house one time. Great turnout. They did a fabulous job of promoting it. 20 people in the room for this open house. When I looked around the room, I realized that at least 16 of those people were already Toastmasters. And then I looked even closer and I realized that only 1 member in the room was from the club that was hosting the open house. So at the end of the night, I know they signed up 2 members. And what do you think happened the following week? They came from a vibrant open house, 20 people in the room. They go the next week and they're standing at the door with 1 or 2 other people to let them in, right? When you do an open house, the problem with open houses can be that you're putting on a fake persona, really. That's really not what your club is. So you want to make sure that when you have an open house, you are presenting what you really are and that you're not just putting on all the fanfare to get them in the door, get their money, and then when they come back the next week, they find a lackluster club or one with not very many members. So that's why I recommend you go on a road show and you tell them. And this is where I talked about having the right presentation, especially in corporate clubs. If you're going to go talk to members of leadership in your corporation, be prepared. Be prepared for the hard questions and be prepared to keep it simple. One thing that we did to keep it simple was we told them that Toastmasters cost them less than $110 a year. Why tell them that it's $45 every 6 months with a $20 startup fee, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? It's $110 a year. Most corporations can pay $110 without sneezing, right? I mean, Walmart, most people are willing to pay $110 for their development. So just keep it simple. Whatever your corporation wants to hear when it comes to finances, keep it simple. Don't get stuck in the mud and the weeds. Just keep it simple. And then we kept it to a 15-minute presentation. We talked about Toastmasters for 15 minutes. We tried to use all the buzzwords that fit in our company, like empowering and investing, which, by the way, we also renamed our 2 clubs with those buzzwords. One of our clubs is now called Empowering Walmart Leaders, and the other one is Investing in Walmart Leaders. So that way, when we talk about it, it rolls right off the tongue, right? You're not trying to say some odd word. Like one of our other clubs that's been in Walmart for 12 years is Save Money, Toast Better. Well, how do you fit that into a presentation and have it sound right? We do have the Save Money, Live Better motto, but when you're talking about communication, it doesn't quite flow right. So if you have the right way to present the club name, and when people see those club names, those are the ones they want to know more about. Since we've started this, I've gotten a lot more requests to know about those 2 clubs, and I'm sure it's because of the name, because they're going out to find a club in the Toastmasters website. The other thing is try to get your members, your new members, to sign up at least 1 week prior to the meeting and encourage them to get started in Pathways. Use the dedicated mentoring program. We have a Getting Started in Pathways session every week. We can help them get started before they go to their very first meeting. And then you've got to communicate, communicate, communicate. Now, the one thing that I forgot to mention here is when we set out to do this, the first time back in November last year, we were starting late. Like I said, we tried to start on the beginning of the renewal period, but we were getting a little late started there. And I didn't want to fall asleep and wait till after Christmas. So we were going to get started as soon as we could. But our goal was to get 20 new members for that new club to start. And we went on this roadshow. We got 18 new members to sign up by our very first meeting. And then when we went into the renewal period, 16 of them renewed their dues. And all of them, 17 of them completed level 1. And then while we were doing that, we went on a roadshow to start investing in Walmart Leaders. Our goal again was 20 members. We signed up 23 and had to start turning people away because we knew we couldn't manage more than 20. 24 was our max that we were going to go with, but we topped out at 23. So that's a lot to absorb what we did there. And the one thing I also want to point out is whenever we talked to leaders and we promoted Toastmasters and we told them we had this new accountable program and they said, hey, I think that's great. Here are some names of the people that I would like to sign up. Well, we set up time with those people. We set up 15 minutes with each one of those people to say, this is what Toastmasters is, this is what we have to offer. We also told them that we had different clubs they could join. If they wanted the accountable club, join this one. If they wanted the flexible club, join this one. We gave them the options, and 19 out of 20 of them chose the accountable clubs. We only had one person that said that they needed a little more flexibility in their schedule, and so they chose the other version. So being open and honest about the way it's set up and that it's not like your typical Toastmasters club, we're not surprising them when they get there. And then the other thing that we did this last time with Investing in Walmart Leaders is we gave them the full schedule so that they could see when speech weeks were and they could start planning ahead. Summer's coming up, vacations are coming. So if they know that they can't give a speech on June 25th, then they just need to contact us to make sure we have them on this July 2nd time slot. So what kind of questions do you have about one club at a time?
Denise, hold on. I feel like I need to do this for you. Wow. Hey, so I was a cool kid too. I did the Pathways Speechcraft. And I had to, when the pandemic hit, had to figure out how to do it online. But when you say speech weeks, are you talking about these blue sections here?
Yes. Yep. Those are speech
Okay.
weeks. Yep. And like I said, we split into 2 groups basically, and then we use breakout rooms to get through all of our speakers.
So 2 groups, got it.
Yep.
How many, you said 2 facilitators, but how many people do you have to staff this with outside of the new club members? Assuming these are all new club people,
So if you
experienced
have,
people, how many did you need?
so I would say for the speech week specifically, you probably need at least 4 because you could probably do 3. If you've got 20 new members and you have 2 weeks of speech week and they're giving 10 speeches a week, and you break them up into 3 rooms, then you probably do 3 Toastmasters because you need a Toastmaster in each room. And so you want them to be experienced, right? And then you bring in your guest evaluators for the first 2 speeches. So by the time you get to your second evaluation speech, the members can now start being evaluators, and you don't need the guest evaluators as much as you do before. And I have to say we are very blessed. We have several people that are willing to help us. And since we're on Zoom, I can reach out to Jackson, Mississippi when I live in Northwest Arkansas, and we have people that come and be guest evaluators from there. So you're not as limited because we have Zoom. Once we go back to in-person, we might have to be a little more flexible, but we're probably going to be doing some hybrid approaches for this session. We also have members from New Jersey and Dallas and California in our club because they're all part of the Walmart family, and because we're on Zoom, they can join us.
Hey, Denise, I have a question. So you didn't mention in the middle that you suggested to have the members enrolled like 3 weeks before the program started. So here, well, pretty much inspired by you, very soon we will start our Speechcraft in the community club. And it's actually will start this week, and we're still getting new participants. So what's your suggestion, like if people join late, like how would you kind of arrange their speech to get them kind of catch up with the program?
So we did have a few people that started late, and so luckily they started in enough time that they didn't fall too far behind. But we used the Dedicated to Members program with our Getting Started in Pathways sessions. Alex hosts one every 3rd Wednesday of the month at 11 o'clock. And since she's within Walmart, it made it easy for them to just want to attend her class, and she got them all enrolled in Pathways. So, but then the ones that started in late and they had to give speeches, we just fit them in as best we could, or we asked them to go to another club and give a speech in order to stay on track. Because when you do this, you can't, if you want everybody to finish level 1 at the same time, you can't have a lot of people jumping around. And if you make an exception for one, then the next one's going to want you to make an exception. So again, we helped them. We reached out to the VPEs of the different clubs and said, hey, do you have a speaking role available this week? They need to give a speech. And we were always able to find them a meeting that they could speak in.
So Denise, I have another question for you.
Okay.
The reason I asked you about the 10 members joining at one time, one thing is this. Our club has gone back to in-person meetings. How would I do this if because using the breakout room works if we were all still on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
But we're kind of in a hybrid mode now. Most of us are coming into the in-person meeting. A few of them are still doing Zoom for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
How would we put this plan in place if most of them are in person?
I think it depends on the facilities that you have, because at Walmart, we could usually get 2 or 3 meeting rooms that are close together. They might be small, but we could get small meeting rooms and we could actually still have breakout rooms. It just takes a little bit longer for people to stand up and walk to the other room and sit down and get ready, right? But you could still have breakout rooms if your facilities have that opportunity. If they don't, then you might have to think of something else.
Well,
if you're in a hybrid approach.
Well, let me say this. I know we have the rooms. They're just not close together.
So yeah, you might have to be a little more creative in that. Yeah. So you might have to be a little more creative in how you do breakout rooms, because the other option would be that if you've got hybrid, then the ones in the room would be one room, and then your hybrid ones would be different breakout rooms, right? So you wouldn't mix the two unless you just had to for your breakout rooms. You could also set it up to where if they are further apart on speech nights, you just say, okay, you're going to meet in this room and you're going to meet in this room. And so you just have them already set up in the breakout rooms. We start off, obviously, on Zoom, we all start together and we end together. But you don't have to do that. You could have them just already go to those meetings, but you still have a full meeting. You still have all the roles filled when you do it. Does that answer your question? I think, to be honest, I haven't gotten there yet, Joyce, so I don't exactly know what that's going to look like when we go back to in-person. But I think that we're probably going to remain hybrid because we do have members from New Jersey and California and Dallas, et cetera. And so just to be able to accommodate the rest of our Toastmaster family, we'll probably stay hybrid for a while.
Hi, this is Jennifer. You know, I was wondering, you talked about, at the beginning, you talked about member accountability and club officer accountability. Tell us more about the officer accountability. I may have missed how we get to the officer accountability.
Okay, so if you think about the officers being the facilitators, really, then they have to be accountable. They have to make sure they're communicating to other members so that the members know what's coming up the next week or the week after. They also have to be there to fill the roles, because you can't do this if your facilitators or your officers are not prepared. Now, when it comes to the 7 different officer roles, it's a little bit different in an accountable club like this, where we're all going through it together, right? So your VP of E, it's a little easier because everybody finishes at the same time. So you just go out and check everybody off pretty much at the same time. We also put together an award ceremony to recognize everybody for finishing level 1. We also had the ones that attended the most meetings award and things like that. So that the VPE did things like that. VP of membership and VP of PR, we're not necessarily bringing new people in, so they do more of a role-based or a meeting role-based accountability. However, we have Workplace, which is Facebook for the workplace, where we promote things on Workplace. And we can do better at that, but that's one thing that your VP of PR could be doing, is promoting the club and just Toastmasters in general. And then your secretary and your treasurer, we don't have a whole lot to do with the treasurer just because everything's done with debit cards and things like that. So there's not a whole lot for the treasurer to do. So your accountable roles is really more in the meeting than outside. Although when you first set it all up, then your treasurer needs to be a little more involved and your secretary could be the one to keep track. We also keep track of what each member does. So we try to keep track of their speech titles. So when we send emails to their managers, we can name their speech titles. We can talk about what they spoke about in their speeches. So there's a little more administrative work to it, but it really pays off if you keep track of a lot of those things. And so your secretary could be the one to do that.
Denise, also something that we try to keep track of is what is their goal? What is the reason why they joined Toastmasters? And so that way they can remember from when they started even to after they finished level 1, what's the progression that member has followed through that particular goal.
So let me talk just for a few minutes on a hybrid approach. So, and not meaning like in-person versus Zoom. So we've talked about the 3 different versions, one member at a time, one meeting at a time, one club at a time. Well, if you have 3 people who start at the same time, well, they can do the one member approach, but they all go together. So it's kind of like the one club approach, except they're all just moving through it together. You can also have where the VPE just manages the agenda and keep it going. So we talked about 3 different versions, but you can be creative and combine those 3 into one that fits for your club. And maybe you start off slower and build to a new one. Now, in our case, we do have the advantage that we had 5 clubs. We had 2 clubs that were getting ready to get closed, and then the rest of them were good. So we were able to take those 2 and start with this. If you've got a club that's been in, working through the whole time, then this whole approach may not work for you unless you've just got a few members that are hanging on to it. But it could be a way to start a new club. It's a great way to get, especially corporate clubs, started if they're brand new corporate clubs. Don't even think that these things are optional. Just get them started. Just tell them this is when you're going to all give speeches. We're going to work through it together. If you've taken any kind of training course, that's what they do in those courses, right? So kind of follow that same format. And we are just about out of time. So some other options is you could just do a Speechcraft, as we talked a little bit about. The other thing is whenever you have a potential new member reach out to you via email or through the Find a Club process, set up 15 minutes with them if you can. Don't just reply to them through email. Send them an email, but then also try to set up 15 minutes. I have found that this is very successful because they can ask the questions and they show that you're engaged with them. And it's a lot more personable than just sending an email with, this is our meeting time, this is our Zoom link, those kind of things. Set up some time with them and talk about what Toastmasters is all about. And then when they see the passion in your voice, they'll just be excited and they'll want to join. And then also, I have some incentives for members who complete projects. Those are always things that you can do to do that. And then the last thing I want to talk about, and then we can open it up to some more questions, is this was a part of our Dedicated to Members program that we have. We have a website. I'll send that out in the email also. We have recurring meetings every month, at least once a month. We have a session on Zoom, how to use Zoom for your meetings, how to use FreeToast Host, how to fill your meeting roles, etc. And then we have Getting Started in Pathways, which we have every week. We have a different day of the week each week that we offer a Getting Started in Pathways. This is open to all members. This is not limited to just one club. This is not limited to just one district. This is for all members. And the reason we started this program was because, in my experience, the mentoring program is great, but it just doesn't work. And one of the reasons it doesn't work is because people are too busy and they don't take the time to help others. So why limit yourself to what's just within your own club? This way we could cross not just club borders, but district borders. We can go anywhere and anybody can come and get help with our Dedicated to Members sessions. We'll add more as we go. If you go to the website, there's a place in there where we have the schedule. You can click on the schedule and see what we're offering. And when people come up with new topics, I'm always looking for more mentors to help with the program. If you've got any ideas, I'm more than happy to have you join us for our Dedicated Members program. Okay, any other questions that I can answer?
I have really just a comment. I think this was great and very helpful in order to kind of, just as a start on how to be able to manage this. So just very well done. I think one more piece when you were mentioning being busy, sometimes, I don't know if it's ever been kind of talking, a discussion on how someone can manage in their personal life, how to also be a part of a club and fulfill their duties, because we got so many things else on our plate outside of the organization, but we want to also make sure that we serve. So sometimes it might be for somebody learning how to really manage their time in order to participate. But this was just great. This was very helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's a great call. And that one's really hard to nail down, right? When people have personal time and personal things that, you know, you don't understand how much time their kids take or their job takes or whatever else that's in their life. But one of the things that I've told people is when I first started in Toastmasters 9 years ago, I knew it was something I needed. However, I wasn't necessarily ready to commit to it because it takes time to go to meetings, right? And plus, we say we're going to a meeting. And when you say meeting, people are like, oh, another meeting in my day. But Toastmasters is not another meeting. You know, it is a place that I go that right sizes my day. It's the balance to my day. And so, you know, sell it as something other than a meeting. That might make it a little more exciting too for people to go. But when I first started, I said, okay, I am going to commit to going to every other meeting. We meet weekly, that's every other week. I felt that that was fair. And then I went to a meeting where we had 4 people at the meeting. I'm like, okay, this is what happens when you don't commit to going every week. And from that point on, I committed to myself that I would go every week because I knew that if I was going every week and other people were going every week, we would be able to help each other. And so, and I think that's another reason why the accountable program works because, again, if you give them an excuse to get out of it, they're going to get out of it unless they have prioritized it to the top of their list. If you help them prioritize it to the top of their list, they're a little more likely to follow through and do it. But I mean, I'll admit there are times I'm a member of a few different clubs, and if I don't have a meeting role that week, I might not go, right? And so we're all busy. We all have excuses why we can't do something. Don't give them the excuse why they can't. Give them an excuse why they should. They signed up for it. They want to get their money's worth out. They said this is what they wanted to get out of Toastmasters, and just help them along with that. And if you know me, you know that I am not an aggressive person. I'm a pretty passive person. So this is outside of my nature to say, no, this is what you're going to do. I am not that kind of person. But I think it works, and I think that that's what people need in their lives, is they need someone to say, this is the week you're going to give a speech. If you need help, I'll sit down with you and help you. You know, you're not just like you're on your own. But when you give somebody an agenda, they're a little more likely to follow it.
I agree, Denise. I mentored a new member that I met at a Manhattan meeting that nobody showed up to, and I recruited him to our club. And I mentored her, and she didn't know any different. I showed her some good habits, and she quickly got to level 1. They don't know any better.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. If this is what they know,
they don't know any worse.
Yes, that's probably a good way to say it. Yeah. Yeah. Don't give them that excuse. Once you open that window for excuses, it's too easy to not attend a meeting, not give a speech. So the more structured you are and the more you hold them accountable, the better the results you'll have.
This was awesome. I'm going to steal it.
Okay. Well, if you want, I'm more than happy to come talk to anyone about this if you want to try to set something up, or, you know, visit the dedicated members site, get some more courses that you'd like to attend there. It's kind of a help desk scenario. So they're usually small groups, and that's the way we want it so that we can help you personally with what you're looking for. If you have a specific need in Pathways, then we'll help you answer that specific need. If on Mondays, every other Monday, we have a President's Mentoring Circle. We just talk about whatever's relevant at the time. Right now, we've been talking about elections. And what do we need to do to prepare for elections? And so it's just a way to bring people together to answer those questions that they might have about their club. And the one thing I do want to make note of is this is not to replace anything that's going on in your district or your club or anything else. This is to supplement anything that you've already got going on. So even though we've got some VPE training, it does not replace the training that your district is going to offer. It is to supplement that, to answer those questions that you might have after training, and to go and talk to other VPEs to get some best practices.
Yeah, so in my district, we do obviously have Walmart, but we don't have Walmart Toastmasters. I did try to reach out and I did not go far. What did you suggest? Is there quote unquote a market for Walmart outside of where you are located?
So that's a
Walmart
really good
Toastmasters.
question. We've
Mhm.
had people ask that question before, and to be honest, I think it's really difficult outside the home office. However, store level would be very, very difficult because you can't get, 7 to 20 people off the floor at the same time. And 110% of them are not going to do it on their own time, right? You might get a few. If you target the management level of the stores, you might get them to do it. However, if I was to approach it, I would, if you have some DCs, distribution centers, in your district, that's where I would start because they have a little more flexibility in being able to do that. So distribution centers. And then also your market HR managers, and I probably have the title wrong. They change titles quite often around here. But we have regional market managers and we have HR managers that cover several stores, right? We were surprised to see that in the Northwest Pacific area, so Hawaii all the way to Washington State, they created a Toastmasters Club back in January. And so that is for all the members to, all the management, mainly in HR and other management roles, and they do it all on Zoom because they are spread out wide. So that is something else that, and we could help you maybe do some research to find out what markets are in Missouri so that you can maybe identify them or we could talk to them. But as far as like stores, I really just don't think that it would work in stores. I think you would have to have the right store manager, and then if that store manager left, it would probably fall apart. So I would start with distribution centers and then maybe your market managers.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we are over time. Thank you all for attending tonight. And again, if you have other suggestions for our dedicated members program, we are more than happy to accommodate. We're looking for mentors, so if you know anybody who wants to teach a class, we'll look for that also. And I'm sure we will see you at another Toastmasters meeting in the near future.
Toastmaster Carpenter,
Yes.
you are the greatest of all time. Check out the emoji.
Where'd it go?
Go.
Thank you. Thank you. And